foundations of the social age, sort of thinking about what is the world that we're in today, how is it different from the world that came before. It is fundamentally different, not just in terms of the ways that we shop, the ways we're connected, but also in terms of the nature of our democracy, the nature of the organizations we exist within, the large-scale disruption of many of the systems around us, which is as nothing compared to the disruption which is coming. So I want to think a little about that ecosystem. I want to think about these two structures, really. On the one hand, we've got formal structures. So a formal structure is, broadly speaking, anything that's owned and controlled by the organization. Buildings, equipment, tooling, distribution networks, hierarchies and organizational charts, systems, process, pathways, all of that is the formal system. And it's probably safe to say that, you know, within the NHS, you've got quite a lot of that stuff. There's quite a lot of stuff. Stuff is good. You know, we all like stuff. But the thing about stuff is it's hard to change it. So once you've created a monolithic system, it becomes remarkably hard to change that stuff. Around it and through it flow social connections. As you came into the room, you could see it. You could see people looking at each other, waving at each other, meeting old friends, talking to people they'd only ever met online before, and then politely introducing themselves to people who they hadn't met. And in each of those encounters, we drew upon a wealth of experience. Our experience of making connections, of making mistakes, things that we've learnt about consequence. How do you politely introduce yourself? How do you... it was interesting, actually. I was in a session yesterday, and one of the chaps that was there, these were chief execs, by the way, one of the chaps that was there was talking at the start in his introduction, and he said, and my husband said to me before I came out, and we came back to that later, because I was talking to him about why he said that, how he felt he wanted to say it. He said he wanted to say his husband to avoid anybody accidentally embarrassing or saying something later that might catch them out. It was quite interesting. It's a conscious activity. Came out really casually in a conversation, but he was deliberately sharing something about himself because perhaps he felt comfortable enough. Perhaps he's been in an awkward situation before where somebody said something and been a bit embarrassed. He was trying to preempt it. These small, nuanced behaviours all sit within the social system. Generally speaking, we're excellent at gauging social systems. Social structures don't sit next to formal structures. They flow throughout them. They support them and they subvert them. So I'm really interested in how those two systems interact. The formal system, which is owned and controlled by the organisation, and the social system, which is owned and controlled by nobody at all, except you and me. The social system can enable the formal system to perform exceptionally. Sometimes formal systems perform exceptionally because of the social system, not because of anything that they do. In fact, sometimes they perform exceptionally despite everything that they do to try to be excellent. This is the tacit tribal knowledge. This is the formal organizational knowledge. And look at that. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm interested in this friction and tension between them. This is where most of my work sits, really, is in understanding not how the two systems can battle for supremacy, but how we can maintain a dynamic tension between the two. Some formal systems do stuff exceptionally well. They are, by their nature, ways of exercising power at scale. We individually have functional utility, the ability to do something. But utility at scale sits within organizations. The ability to mobilize and to act and to get stuff done sits within the formal system. But often the ability to innovate, to be curious, to be inquisitive, to learn, sits within the social system. If the formal system dominates the social, you might get very good at replication. You might get good at doing stuff at scale, but you probably won't be good at changing and adapting fast. And we need to change and adapt fast because the world is changing ever faster around us. In fact, I'd argue we need a new type of strength. Not a strength at being able to change, but a strength at being constantly in motion. The thing about formal systems is you can change them, but it takes a lot of effort. It costs a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time. Now, in a world that's constantly changing, the survival strategy isn't to optimize your ability to change. It's to find a fundamentally new type of strength, which is held within that constant motion. If you have to exert energy to change, as an organization, you'll be constantly breathless. You know, technology is great. It's the visible manifestation of change. But there are two prime effects of technology, which is why I would argue we're substantially through the digital age. We've not yet seen all of the technology that we're going to have, but we are connected. So the primary effect of technology is connectivity. We are connected in many different ways, entirely outside the control of any organization. Many different ways. And that makes us resilient. We can stay in touch despite the best efforts of any organization to prevent us doing so. Despite, in fact, the best efforts of any government to stop us from doing so. Communication is radically different than how it was even 10 or 15 years ago. So the primary effect is that we are connected. The secondary effect is that technology is democratized. We used to rely on organizations to hold technology and infrastructure of creativity, of distribution. And it's all within our grasp now. You can make a film, you can 3D print a drone. I was at a Maker's Fair, a Maker's Robot Fair in San Diego last year, where they're not only building robots, they're 3D printing robots, they're 3D printing drones. They're 3D printing drones that can fly with parts of a 3D printer that will reassemble and print other 3D printers. And they're doing so outside the control of any kind of organization. They're doing it for a few dollars. Technology, creativity, it's democratized. And all of this empowers the social community. We're in the social age because it's who you know that count now, not because they're in a position of power and influence, but because knowledge is distributed through the network. Knowledge is held in social systems. We still have formal knowledge, but a lot of the knowledge we rely on is co-created, dynamic, and adaptive. And it's better. It's better because it will change faster. If you look at the research behind it, you'll see that sites like Wikipedia are becoming more reliable, more valid, and better. There was a study out probably 2 years ago now of Wikipedia across 42 hard science subjects versus the journal Nature. You know, Nature, peer-reviewed Western scientific methodological publication. Wikipedia put together by a bunch of idiots to the point where the universities said you can't use it to reference. Across 42 hard science subjects, Wikipedia had 3 serious factual errors and Nature had 2 serious factual errors. And Wikipedia had 170 minor factual errors and Nature had 150 minor factual errors. So what we learned from that is that Nature is better than Wikipedia. Yay. But it only took Wikipedia 10 years to get there. And it took Western scientific methodology 2,000 years to get there. And Wikipedia changes faster. It's the co-created cognitive surplus of billions of people around the world.